Imagine a nation taking full control of its land, ending private ownership overnight. That's exactly what happened in Burkina Faso. President Ibrahim Traoré recently introduced a radical land reform law, making all land state-owned. This move has sparked intense debate. Is this a strategic decision to protect national interests, or is it a step toward authoritarian control? Interestingly, this comes at a time when US President Donald Trump suspended aid to South Africa over its land reform policies. To understand Burkina Faso's bold step, let's explore what's happening and compare it to South Africa and Zimbabwe. Before we dive in, make sure to subscribe to the African Web and turn on notifications so you don't miss out on more updates about Africa's evolving political and economic landscape. Burkina Faso's government has taken a historic step by officially taking ownership of all land in the country. Approved by the Council of Ministers, this sweeping reform aims to streamline land management, curb exploitation, and establish a system that prioritizes national interests over private gains. Previously, land was governed under customary law, where local communities controlled land use based on traditional practices. While this system had cultural significance, it also led to widespread disputes, corruption, and unequal land distribution. Wealthy elites and foreign corporations often took advantage of legal loopholes, acquiring large portions of land while small-scale farmers struggled for access. This deepened economic disparities and fueled tensions among different groups. By centralizing land control, the government seeks to create a fairer, more efficient system. However, the move has sparked debate. Some view it as a necessary measure to protect national resources, while others fear excessive government control and a lack of individual land rights. One of the key motivations behind this reform is to prevent land grabbing by foreign corporations. For years, weak land policies have allowed multinational companies to acquire vast areas, often displacing local farmers and reducing their access to fertile land. By placing land under state ownership, the government aims to ensure that national resources are preserved for the benefit of its own people rather than being exploited by external interests. Additionally, this reform is expected to enhance agricultural productivity and food security. With direct government oversight, land can be allocated more strategically for farming, ensuring that food production aligns with national needs and reducing dependence on food imports. Land conflicts have long been a source of tension in Burkina Faso, particularly between farmers, herders, and indigenous communities. Disputes over land boundaries and grazing rights have often escalated into violent clashes, disrupting livelihoods and regional stability. A regulated system under government control could help resolve these conflicts by establishing clear guidelines for land use and ownership. Furthermore, industrialization and infrastructure development have frequently been stalled due to land disputes and bureaucratic delays. With the state in charge, large-scale projects such as roads, factories, and housing developments can proceed more efficiently, boosting economic growth and modernization efforts. While this land reform presents significant opportunities for Burkina Faso's development, its long-term success will depend on how effectively the government implements and manages it. Will this bold move lead to greater prosperity, or will it create new challenges in governance and land ownership rights? Only time will tell. South Africa's land reform is deeply rooted in the country's painful history of racial discrimination and forced dispossession. During apartheid, black South Africans were systematically removed from their ancestral lands and relocated to designated areas, while white settlers took control of vast agricultural estates. The current South African government has made land redistribution a priority, aiming to return land to its rightful owners and address the economic disparities created by colonialism and apartheid. However, this effort has not been without opposition, particularly from Western powers. The United States, under President Donald Trump, is highly critical of South Africa's land reform policy, with Trump even suspending US aid to the country, citing concerns over land seizures and white farmers' rights. This stance reflected broader fears among foreign investors that land redistribution might destabilize property rights and discourage investment. Despite international pressure, South African leaders have consistently defended their land reform strategy, arguing that it is legally sound, constitutionally backed, and essential for social justice. They emphasize that the policy is not about indiscriminate land confiscation, but about rectifying historical injustices through structured legal frameworks. Yet the issue remains deeply divisive within the country itself. Some argue that land redistribution is happening too slowly, leaving millions of black South Africans landless and economically marginalized, while others fear that poorly executed reforms could harm agricultural productivity and lead to food shortages, as seen in Zimbabwe. Burkina Faso's approach to land reform, however, is fundamentally different. Unlike South Africa, where the primary goal is to correct past racial injustices, Burkina Faso's policy is driven by a vision for national development and resource management. The government has placed all land under state ownership, not to redistribute it among historically displaced groups, but to ensure strategic use of land for agriculture, infrastructure, and industrialization. The move is less about historical justice and more about centralizing control to prevent land speculation, foreign exploitation, and internal conflicts. While South Africa grapples with the challenge of balancing justice and economic stability, Burkina Faso's government believes that a state-controlled system will enable faster and more efficient development. To understand the potential risks and outcomes of land reform, we can take lessons from Zimbabwe's experience. Under British colonial rule, white settlers controlled most of the country's fertile land, leaving the black majority marginalized. For decades, land ownership remained highly unequal, fueling growing resentment. In the early 2000s, President Robert Mugabe launched a forceful land redistribution program, seizing land from white farmers and giving it to black Zimbabweans. While the policy aimed to correct historical injustices, it lacked proper planning, technical support, and financial backing. As a result, agricultural production collapsed, food shortages became widespread, and the economy spiraled downward. The situation worsened when Western nations, particularly the US and the UK, imposed severe economic sanctions, crippling Zimbabwe's financial sector. Once known as Africa's breadbasket, Zimbabwe struggled with hyperinflation, unemployment, and political instability. This raises concerns. Could Burkina Faso face similar economic repercussions? Unlike Zimbabwe, Burkina Faso's reform is focused on state ownership rather than forced redistribution. However, questions remain about how effectively the government will manage land resources and whether foreign powers will respond with economic pressure. If mismanaged, the policy could disrupt agriculture and investment, leading to unintended consequences. Burkina Faso's land reform is a bold and unprecedented move. Unlike South Africa, which is addressing historical injustices, or Zimbabwe, which faced severe economic fallout, Burkina Faso is focusing on national control and economic efficiency. Africa has long struggled with land mismanagement and foreign exploitation. Whether this policy will bring prosperity or unintended challenges remains to be seen. What do you think? Will this reform be a game changer for Burkina Faso or lead to unforeseen consequences? Let us know in the comments. And don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more updates on Africa's transformation.